Travel 3 hours to be able to engage, for us to talk about what are the issues. We had a lot of elders be able to talk to us about what are the issues and how you go forward. And so we decided that part 2, which is what we're here now at this summit, is about you all getting the chance after we stop talking to talk about what will it look like for you, right? A think tank. And then, as Prof said, just to give you where we're trying to go, which really came from students. It didn't come from the faculty. It came from students. And we really are just support of getting that done. And so the next thing the student leader said was, so then, as Prof said, we want to have Africans from all over the globe come to Ghana for a Pan-African Student Convention. And so part of today, you will talk about that. How will you all start planning that? If we have it in 2020 or 2021, what will that look like? So in saying that, I wanted to, say thank you for, hosting us today and just the trajectory of how things have, moved. Our first time, it was University of Ghana students who hosted us, and we appreciate that. And so certainly I want to compliment the students, because you really are the Pan-African movement at this point. It's just the elders, including myself, that will be a support. You have to take it forward. And so you have to decide what Pan-Africanism means to you and what Pan-Africanism looks like. Quite like Prof said, you have to make that decision. We can't just take what the ancestors said verbatim, but you have to critically analyze what works today, what's practical today. So when I'm asked to speak, and I'll say by the local committee, I was assigned. And I'm saying this because I want to model what we all have to do as emerging leaders. Now I was assigned this to speak to you today. And I will say that speaking in terms of giving a speech or giving a talk is not my gift. Teaching a certain subject is different to me than speaking about a topic or giving a speech. So I said, it's not my gift, but I was put on the list. So I said, you have to do it. No excuses. Don't say I don't want to. Don't say I can't. When you're assigned, especially to move our people, you do it. You find something in yourself. And I share that because it's valuable as young people to know that instead of excuses, to push your capacity produces growth within yourself. And you never know when you're called to do something if you follow through, but blessings should come in your own growth. So I just want to give that, perspective today, that you always try to do what you're called to do, what you're asked to do. So when something's not my gift, and even sometimes when it is, I always commune with the ancestors. So what do you want me to say? What do you want me to convey to young people about today as we talk about their role of being Pan-Africanists in the 21st century? And so the thing that came to me from them was, tell them about our blueprints. Talk about the blueprints from us as ancestors. So I think it's important first to talk about what are blueprints, just in case some of us are not sure. Today they can be called blueprints or construction documents. So anybody want to share what you would define as a blueprint? Anybody?
Like a model with a finish. Yeah. Like a model for something that is going to be finished.
Okay. So it can be a model, Candace?
Basically like an idea.
Okay. So an idea. Okay. So the dictionary definition is a technical drawing, right, of an idea, right, for a design to be implemented. And so who generally makes blueprints for construction documents? Architects, engineers. So they generally make those, right? And so a blueprint is important with an idea or design, whether you're doing a building or a project, to know how to go about it, right? So the blueprint is important. So putting that in context, we're talking about the blueprint of Pan-Africanism from the ancestors. And I want to give the disclaimer that as we're talking about it, I agree with Prop. So a blueprint is a framework, right? So, but the builders have to use the framework, the blueprint, and put in their own specifications, their own added design, their own added swag to it, as sometimes students nowadays say, right? And so that includes, like Prof said, 21st century ideas. Even if you have a blueprint from 1920, right, Prof, you're not going to put the same specifications, the same designs in 2019, right? You're going to put your own look to it, right? And so if we talk in the context of an analogy of ancestors being the architects, then who are the builders left to do a future project? We are, right? You all are as you, in terms of building future Pan-Africanism ideals, right? And so I would define Pan-Africanism, there are many different variations, as the liberation of all African people. And so I also want to talk about why is that important. I think because sometimes, especially coming from the diaspora, we sometimes have to advocate, sometimes have to teach our other brothers and sisters in the diaspora, the Caribbean, and the United States, why Africa is important. And I say that because sometimes the West, or not, a lot of times the West promotes an ideal of individualism. So I'm in this space, and so all I need to do is worry about me and my small space. One of the things I'm always, as a researcher, as just a spiritual person, amazed by the ancestors is, even though certainly, you know, we have to think in the 21st century, their general blueprints, to me, of wisdom, of what we have to do, have not changed. Some of the things that Malcolm X, my favorite ancestor, said back then, because we haven't addressed them, are still the same things happening in terms of our freedom. And so one of the things that Malcolm X said, of the many things that I admire, he said, no black person on this whole entire planet will be free until Africa is free. So my liberation is tied to Africa. And so if Africa remains not liberated and oppressed, then that means I remain not liberated and oppressed. So I think that's important to put that in the framework. That's why Africa is so important, because we are a collective people. So it's not just about me in Washington, D.C., but it's about the freedom of all of us. And when you have a whole nation behind you, no matter where you are, then you are protected, like Malcolm X said. If you have no nation, anybody can mess with you. And we see that every day on the continent. We see it every day in the Caribbean. We see it every day, blacks in Europe. We certainly see it every day, blacks in the United States. And so we have to build a new African nation in your design as the new builders. It has to be, if we're going to think about liberation, if you have to think about freedom. And so Africa becomes important in that context as the center. And you're coming together, you know, especially speaking to the students that travel from the States here. You're coming together in Africa is important, so you get to engage with your comrades, your peers. And one of the things I want to point out to you, I always tell students, Malcolm X You know, if I'm talking about some of our U.S.-based ancestors, right, all of them are our ancestors. Yah Santua, Kwame Nkrumah, all of them are our ancestors. But in terms of our struggle, our plight once we were taken to the Americas, talking about some of them, they were born with gifts. They were born with a purpose to accomplish. Right? So it's not necessarily a time that we can reflect as his children that we can say W.E.B. Du Bois was anything but great. Malcolm X was anything but great. Kwame Nkrumah was anything but great. But talking about some of the U.S.-based ancestors, one of the things that I've always noticed in reading about their journey is even when they were great, their scholarship changed, their ability to make change was different. It was elevated once they made the journey to Africa. It was like transformation. W.E.B. Du Bois talks about double consciousness. And the idea that as Africans in America, we always have to struggle. And I would say the same in Europe and sometimes the same in Africa with colonization. Right? We see ourselves as Africans, but then we also have the struggle of what the oppressor sees us as. Right? And so when you step on the continent and you spend quality time, not being a tourist, but really engaging and immersing yourself, you become transformed. And so the proof is in some of their work that we see in books and in what we know we benefit from. Martin Luther King also, some of you may not realize, had a pivotal moment when he came to the celebration of independence to Ghana after the invitation of Kwame Nkrumah. His scholarship, his purpose was also elevated once he put his feet on the continent. So that becomes important. So I'm getting ready to end, but I wanted to talk to you next about, in taking on the blueprints of the ancestors, what as young people do you need to do as you now are connected? Right? Proof of that was yesterday. All of the service engagement and partnerships we did as different groups coming together, Pan Africanism, right? Making the change, a tangible change in the community. Painting, donating books, teaching kids about mental wellness through yoga and other things. So the first thing that you need to do when we talk about Pan-Africanism, our freedom, our liberation, is you have to study. When you talk about builders trying to build a building or a design from the architectural blueprints, they have to study, they have to know it. And so how do you know it? You have to read it. We have to read more. We have to study more. We were assigned to make sure we read Africa Must Unite before we even stepped on the continent. And some of our comrades have read already all of Kwame Nkrumah's books. To just name one ancestor who has a lot to say about Pan-Africanism and how we take it forward. So I would challenge this group that you have to study. The world is designed to keep you off focus of social media, unproductive social media, parts of it that are unproductive. Videos, television, movies, all kinds of things to keep you off your purpose of revolution. So you have to study more. And then you have to dialogue with each other more. So that's important, to read work of the ancestors, but also to read work of elders, like Prof. Bashway, like Doc. You have to do that so you become edified. The next thing we have to do, you have to think about doing and talk about that, what that looks like. Kwame Ture talked about organize, organize, organize. You may have the best ideas by yourself, but you have to join an organization. You have to be organized to make change. You have to make change. And so to do that, you have to be part of something bigger than yourself. So that's important. So people in this room that aren't part of a Pan-African organization, think about doing that. Whether you join the All African People's Revolutionary Party, if you're on campus, join ASIC, join Africana Market, join True Culture University, join and be involved in 3GC. Be in an organization so you can organize, be part of that toward our liberation. Not just for yourselves, but the unborn that also will come after you. That's important. Organization is so important. The other thing, or maybe the last thing is, before I give the floor over to Doc, is uplifting each other's gifts. Alethea is who she is. Tito is who he is. Samuel is who he is. However, like Kraft talked about, the ancestors are from the past, but the ancestors are also you. And so when saying that, it's important to look at each other and uplift each other, because you have Yat Asantewa in you. You have Harriet Tubman in you. You have Kwame Nkrumah in you. You have Sekou Touré in you. And so honor those gifts in each other so you help the movement. You help it go forward. And so I want to end and put that in the context of what I said about liberation. If we want freedom, we have to do those things. We have to study as young people together. Past work, current work, but also make your work. I want to point out True Culture University, their whole platform is taking Pan-Africanism digital, which allows all of you to write articles, blogs. They're a medium to express yourselves and organize. Africana Market, Ibrahim, he had to just leave, are examples of economic empowerment, right? Young people owning businesses and showing how it can be done at a very early stage. That's important. 3GC nationally bringing you all together to travel to the continent. So thinking about what are the things that we have to do. So you have to study, you have to organize, and you have to see the gifts in each other if we want to be free. And we're not free. Trust me. I laugh sometimes when my own peers say to me, America is the greatest place in the world. And I always, where do you live? I feel unsafe driving down the street. That a cop might stop me for nothing. And my life could be over. Just because they decided. So we are not free. And the world tries to tell you that you are because maybe you can buy things and you can. That's not freedom. Freedom is being able to have peace. Freedom is all of your people being able to have their needs. Freedom is being able to be creative, to take your people forward. That's freedom. And so we're not free yet. So I wanted to leave with something from Harriet Tubman in the context of her own time in being a revolutionary, creating the Underground Railroad. And she said, and I was inspired to tell you the same thing, because we have to do this. She said, if you hear the dogs, keep going. If you hear the dogs coming after you as we're escaping, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. Keep going. so if you want to taste of freedom, she said, keep going. And that's what we have to do. We have to keep going. And it's your turn. It's your time. And so that's what today is about. It's you. And so all we can really do is support as elders. I won't speak for them, but aging. So it's you as the new generation.